let's get started and talk about how SLPs are increasing their income and serving more children. We're going to share lots of ideas of ways to increase your income, ways to serve more children. But another piece of this that I think is really important is that we're talking about lots of ideas in a very broad field. Not every idea that we pitch is going to appeal to you, but hopefully many of these ideas will resonate with you. And as I really thought about what we were talking about, I thought this is a lot about driving your career in the direction that you want your career to go. So I remember when I started in this field, I was a clinical fellow and I went over to our regional service center to a presentation. And afterwards, I went and talked to the presenter and I was like, I want to do what you do. This was so cool. And she kind of chuckled, knowing I was a clinical fellow, and said, well, you need to get some experience under your belt before you start doing that. So here I am, like 30 years into my career, but I have driven my career in a direction where I get to present and I get to do evaluations, another piece that I love. So a lot of what we're talking about today may be an addition to a full-time job for you now, but it is also about driving things in the right direction. I'll also say that we've done that very much with bilinguistics. So when we started this company, it's been 22 years now, every single one of us was full-time services. We worked in early childhood groups. We worked in schools. We worked in our clinic. We still do services, absolutely. But what we've done over the course of many years is we have launched a lot of products, and we do a lot of presentations. We do a travel study abroad program with Therapy Abroad. And so we've driven things in the direction that we want them to go so that we get to do the pieces that we really love about this job, and move the field forward.
It's great to be able to do something you love, but there's also a very important message going on here, because we're going to talk today about how we are short speech pathologists, and speech pathologists under current duress are leaving the field. And one way to retain ourselves is to retain our own sanity and keep ourselves enjoying what we're doing. So yes, this is a vote for increasing the amount of time you're doing the things that you love. Yes, you should be compensated for that. And yes, we need to retain you, because all these years that you've been putting into the field are only going to benefit more kids to come. So we'll start with our disclosures, and you're going to be seeing some of the things that we've done across these last 4 years. For those of you that are new to bilinguistics, we've been around for quite a while, 20 years. That's scary to say. And we have had some successes and we've had some real duds. And we're going to share a little bit about both because they're great learning experiences. We're also going to talk about, basically throughout this time, there is a strategy, or there's kind of steps we can take that make our successes more probable. And what you're going to see is kind of this way of thinking that we go through when we're vetting an idea and putting it out there and picking out what it is we're going to do for the speech pathology community. This just didn't happen overnight. It's been going on since 2002. It's even gotten better. And at the end, we're even going to show you that it continues today in the steps that we take to bring new ideas to more speech pathologists. So that being said, 20 years, and we are here to tell you that there has never been a better time to produce your own ideas and get your own ideas out into the field. When we began, there was no thing called YouTube. Didn't even exist. There were some like online communities, but really there was absolutely no social media. Maybe some of you guys have heard about this thing called Amazon. That wasn't even an idea back then. Like, there was no place to put your books. We had these paper catalogs that came into the mail if you needed speech stuff. So as of today, you can market for free. You have these unbelievably beautiful programs online that initially begin for free for you to develop beautiful things. You have ways to share and build communities for free. And speech pathologists, especially one small gift this side of the pandemic, there's additions like teletherapy and people who are working in partial careers, meaning that they might have time in their schedule, be it the summers or maybe their evenings or the way they organize their clinic to make these things happen. So there's these technology advances. I don't know if you guys know about Canva, but like design tools, going to show you what we actually use to make some of the things that we have. There's, like I said, new marketplaces and all the platforms. Not only that, but you really don't need any skills. Even on the beginning, if you were to join one of these platforms, you could find a million videos telling you how to use it. Then the other side is also true, that the needs about our field have never been greater. We're talking about enormous caseloads, shortages of SLPs, difficulty finding evaluators. These are like clinical directors and speech leads, and SLPs feeling pressed for time. So while that's not a good thing, what that does is create opportunity for people who have skill sets, such as being able to do something more efficiently or ways in which they can organize their time. And it used to be where, in terms of marketing or choosing something, you want to choose something that works. But the needs in our field are so enormous that you could actually choose almost anything and get up and running with it. You need to pick something that you excel at and that you love. So on one hand, this could be a discrete skill, like you're incredible at fluency or you're incredible at apraxia, or it could just be a professional ability. You really kill it with therapy. You can dismiss kids like crazy. You love evaluations. You're able to do that. And we're here to tell you that choosing something that you love is actually the only way, because it takes a little while. And if you're doing something you think will work versus something you know will work, down the line, it won't be as easy to keep going and to meet the people you need to meet. You don't have to be a technological whiz to make this stuff happen, right? Social media is great for getting it out there, but you don't need to know how to run all these different platforms. Certainly, we didn't at the beginning. And your personality leans heavily into this. So some people they love their voice and their speaking is incredible. There's podcasts. There's some people who love videos and are able to show things and have beautiful visuals. There's video, there's YouTube, there's the social media platforms that support video. Some people are incredible writers and have resources that are downloadable. There are blogs. There's ways in which you can upload things to websites. There's ways in which you can evaluate and do therapy that fit into any of these. And time is something that you can use that's available. So speech pathologists are a little bit unique. Healthcare professionals and educators are professional, but we kind of wear two different hats, right? We are healthcare, we are education. Many of us work a school year and have the summers free. Many of us work an early day and we're done by 3:30. Many of us work in the clinic where we have stackable schedules, meaning that I'm expected to produce 40 billable hours, 60 billable units, but I can make that happen. We have people working in our clinic that stack everything into 4 days and take a single day off, reduce the amount of work that they are producing in times like when they're getting married or having a child. So if many of us have this ability to alter our schedule a bit, but we're here to tell you that doesn't even matter. Up until like 3 years ago, we were carrying full caseloads to produce everything you know about from biolinguistics. And to this day, we're still doing evaluations, still working in the clinics, because we know that is how we guarantee that the stuff we make actually works with other speech pathologists. And we're going to share, if you don't have a schedule, you're early on in your career and this is when you work, this is when you got to work, you can still make things happen. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what's going on in the field that makes all this craziness happen and has accelerated everything. And then we're going to break this down into 5 ideas that we have, which we think are the best ways to go about influencing your income with the time we have and the resources we have. And then we're going to end with a bonus. And we're going to talk about an elephant in the room, which is basically finding the funding or the time to make this happen and show you by example what we're currently investing our time and our focus. And why? Because speech pathologists have told us that this is something that they need. Okay, so let's start with us. Most of you know we have a blog, and we're very proud to let you know that the Speech Therapy blog, we've been around forever, and we just crossed 39,000 subscribers. Think about that. That is a huge chunk of the 180,000 speech pathologists out there that are getting these essays every Thursday. And you guys are vocal, and when things are right or wrong, you definitely share. Here's an example. This article was about our caseload levels, and the amount of comments and the amount of traffic this thing gets is incredible. It's speech pathologists talking about like what they're up against and caseload size that they have and what they're supposed to do. In this specific article, I had reached out and interacted with a professional in California because she had said, I have a 60 plus 30. Then I've been around, I had no idea what that was, right? Like, what is 60 plus 30? And she was talking about that. She was happy that it finally got that way. So what she meant is that she had a caseload of 60 children in a school, and then she had 30 other kids in the RTI process that she was working with. And I was like, tell me about this. Like, because she was like kind of ecstatic. And she said, well, you know, these guys need help. I'm seeing them in the morning in like fluency in our TIC groups for their RTI, to get some referral data. And it means I don't have to do like crossing guard or bus duty. And we're doing lunch bunch. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you have a caseload of 90 that you're not getting credit for. Yes, you may not have certain paperwork on that, but that's still 90 kids. These are the solutions people are coming up with to deal with the craziness that we have. This other article is just about the fact that our field needs to catch up with time and it needs to change. Look at the date on this. This was written before the pandemic. It still gets
Feels
more
like
comments than anything. And the comments, if you read down them, they're getting crazier and crazier. They put a cap on us of 46 contact hours, 32 classrooms, like ABA, life skills.
I'll add too, there was the comment there about, I wonder if this looks different in states where there are unions. And I will say that, yes, it does. I remember we went to New York to do a presentation and we were told, okay, they have to take their lunch. They have to be off for this amount. You cannot start talking before they have had their X amount of time for lunch. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool that people get a lunch break, because so many of us don't
That's
do
humane.
that, don't take that.
Yeah. Have any of you guys seen this? This is careerexplore.com. And it's not just us speech pathologists knowing about this, but there's kind of some cracks in the veneer of this idea that speech pathologists are happy. Do speech pathologists love what they do? A resounding yes. Typically, those are the numbers you see from ASHA, 85%. We have career satisfaction numbers, meaning we love what we chose to do. But think about this. Career Explorer has access to all the fields, and they can put you in a block called education or healthcare. It doesn't matter. Recent data is suggesting that we have, read it there, one of the least happiest careers in the United States. That's not good. And that's something that we need to address. The bottom 14% of all careers on their website, right? So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yes. And let me add that, we've had so much interest in this course. Like, I don't think it's that speech language pathologists don't love what we do. I think that we love the content of what we do, right? We got into this field for a reason. What we don't love is the overwhelm and all of the extra stuff put on top of us. And so we'll talk a bit about driving things in the way you want to drive them. Let's talk about diversity. So one of the things that I think has been a pressure point for many of us is that there is this increasing diversity in our caseloads. It's real. You're not imagining it. Our caseloads have become more diverse, and we have had to figure out how to work with diverse populations. From the ASHA surveys that were done over the course of many years, they've actually stopped doing this particular one. But one of the questions that they used to ask was, how comfortable are you serving a diverse population? And I tracked that over a number of years, and it just didn't, the needle didn't move, right? It was like people did not feel comfortable serving diverse populations. The reality is that we have to get comfortable doing that. And so that's been one of the directions that we've gone, is creating resources for serving diverse students. Let me orient you to this graph. We have on the right-hand side, this is a snippet from the 2020 census. And if you look at the right-hand side, you see the diversity of adults in the United States. And then if you look at the left side, you see the diversity of children in the United States at the same point in time. So what we're seeing is a massive shift in demographics from adults to children at a single point in time. So moving to the next graph, we can see that this is across the country. This is not specific to a single area. Similarly, this graph shows on the right-hand side adults, and on the left-hand side children. And you can see that the darker colors, the blues and the greens, are less diverse, and the warmer colors, the reds and oranges, are more diverse. So you can see that it is across the country that we are seeing this increase in diversity. And then if we go to the next slide, we can look at demographics of teachers and speech language pathologists compared to the demographics of children. And here you see very, very plainly that we have what we could call a mismatch, a cultural mismatch, a linguistic mismatch, right? We have a lot more diversity in the children who we serve than we have from teachers and from speech language pathologists. Now, the impact of that has been over referral of many children for services when they don't need them, over diagnosis of communication disorders when they don't truly exist.
There are also 4 other things that are influencing our work. So Ellen and I crossed the 20-year mark. What we're seeing and all this craziness, this hasn't been going on forever. There's something going on that is accelerating a lot of the difficulties that we see. And we're just going to highlight 4 of them here. Start with environmental factors. So if something happens in the world environmentally, it can cause an entire population to shift to another country, to another area. On a global scale, what this means for us is that there could be a drought in Central Africa and a population moves to another country. And this is impactful for us as speech language pathologists because it might not be a language we've ever heard of. We don't have any resources or research on, or it's a dialect that just we're not familiar with. So an environmental factor could completely transform the linguistic neighborhood that we live in. Secondarily, and more common, is that we have environmental factors that are not cross-border. So what this means is that there can be a fire, and there can be a flood, and there can be an earthquake, sending people in a community across a state border, across a city border, that can completely transform your neighborhood. As an example, we went back to school one day on a Monday, and because of hurricanes that occurred in Puerto Rico, which not only in 2022, but there were more hurricanes also before the pandemic. And we came back to schools that had higher than average populations of Puerto Rican students who only spoke Spanish, like monolingual Spanish speaking children. And the neighborhoods that we were in had to transform either temporarily or permanently to accommodate these language differences and these new kids because of these. Economy, it doesn't have to be all bad. Your chamber of commerce, your state, your city, your governor could pass a new law changing the economy of your area, which could mean that they would allow more or different styles of workers to join your economy. Now, this can be on a small scale, or it can be on a large scale. We're in an urban setting. So when I say this, oftentimes it could be a community that opens new commerce, like a meat processing plant. but also in Austin, Texas, we've grown as a tech hub in the last 10 to 15 years. So the variety of Asian and West Asian languages that we see for economic reasons is enormous. Amarillo, for those of you that are out of the country, Amarillo is a town in West Texas, so it is way out there in the desert. These guys have been doing bilingualism before the United States was a country. Like, they know this stuff, but it's been traditionally Spanish and English. Look at this article from the New York Times that Amarillo now sees thousands of new workers and new languages because of economic differences that were made. They opened new plants and expanded their economy. Those school districts have to accommodate and enjoy, to some fact, these new foods, these new ethnicities, these new cultures, but it also means those new students. Political events. Something can happen that the United States or your country is not even involved in, and your country could accept political refugees from that event. Or your country could be involved in it and also accept refugees, completely changing the landscape of your neighborhood or your town. This happened to us. Ellen and I have daughters that went to school together, elementary school, just 2 blocks from our houses. And they, due to what was happening in the Middle East, we accepted, I think it was like 39 Arabic-speaking families moved into our neighborhood, transforming our elementary schools. Thankfully, Ellen and I were there to talk about difference or disorder and differences between Arabic and English. But overnight, a backyard, a language, a neighborhood could completely change. This used to not be the case. Okay, this one's out to all my veterans. Do you feel that things have gotten better or more difficult as technology has come? This thing called the internet. Like, does this make any sense to you that with the internet, with documentation being electronic, with all of that, shouldn't our life be easier? But the truth is that it's not. And it doesn't, the programs, the dinosaurs we're using on our computers in the schools and the clinic don't even match what happens on our own personal phone. Well, there's reasons behind this too. It's basically, when technology is applied to healthcare or the medical community or the educational community, it's a completely different ballgame. So first of all, security is paramount. Privacy, compliance. You got kids' names in there, right? Someone developing an app in Silicon Valley to play something on your phone, they can release it to a smaller group and they don't have to be as concerned about that, right? We do directly out of the gates. It also has to have equitable access. What that means is from day one, new healthcare, new stuff for us has to be accessible and usable by all of us. It can't segregate into just this small group or that group after the testing is done. This makes it extremely difficult to make technological changes and explains why our software is so much different. Ellen and I have been working on building a program that helps speech pathologists write reports more accurately and faster. And we did it in pieces across the years, but we couldn't even get it off the ground until we partnered with a group that did teletherapy and had this beautifully strong, solid, private, secure platform for us to build this on.
And if I can jump in and say, I shared that I love doing speech language evaluations. That is like one of my favorite parts of this field. I do not love writing reports, right? That part is, it's incredibly time consuming. And as I have done the thousands of speech and language evaluations that I've done over the years, every time I'm like, what? I feel like we are spending so much time doing things over and over and over again and transferring information from one place to another. And so that has been one of the things that's driven Evalubox, is just like, we got to fix this problem. So we'll share some of the pieces of that we have implemented a little bit later in the presentation. But again, it's figuring out, what do you love in the field? What do we need to fix in the field, and moving towards that?
Yes. So the truth is, you can look at this 2 ways. Where there are real problems, there's also a real opportunity for solutions. it's also the easiest way to market yourself and find work. When the work you do exactly matches what other people are needing and struggling with, they're going to listen to you and they're going to pay for the work that you do or the thing that you create. So yes, we have these changes to our field, but it also creates a new opportunity for those of us with experience to get our ideas out there. So when we're talking about increasing income, what we're actually talking about is uniting your abilities and your interests and your skill set with the people who need it most. So here are 5 effective ways that we found to be able to do this. And we're going to start with a fun one. And this is therapy and evaluation product creation, if you have ideas around this. Okay? So much better to be doing these now. Marketing your stuff and building an audience and your reputation costs you nothing these days. With everything that's going on in social media and all of the social media groups that we can be a part of. You can make the most beautiful materials for free. Many of these counts, I made these on Canva, which is a program, it's a design program. Super easy, super user-friendly. Yes, they have a pay level. That's a couple bucks if you want to purchase their pictures, but for the most part, you can use this for free. For those of you that have attended our conferences or are part of our SLP Impact community, you may have seen these infographics that we've been producing, which coalesce all the information about a simple topic into these beautiful screen-ready, printable things. You make these for free. Amazon. Alan and I are now the authors of 8+ books and ebooks. And looking back on this is ridiculous, but we had this idea. Here's this crazy idea that speech therapists need materials to be able to work with kids who don't share their language, have different cultural backgrounds and different socioeconomic backgrounds. And they just need these words and these sounds from the different languages compared. We had this idea called difference versus disorder. And we went to the publishers. We have a publisher right across the highway from us here. We have 2 more just south of us in San Antonio. And do you know what they said? No, we won't publish that. We can't do that. That's for bilingual people. And we would never make our money back on that. So luckily this thing called, what's that?
I said the market share was too small for them.
Market share was too small, yeah. Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. Amazon has an arm that walks you through and teaches you how to publish your own stuff. And you don't have to be a whiz at it. You can gain skills. You can hire people on a thing called Upwork to help you out with some of the designs for the parts you're not good at. But in essence, they will help you build your idea into a book for free, and then they will market it. And yes, you would want to help get reviews, and yes, you want to help market itself, but they'll do it. And then they'll even sell it and ship it for you for a percentage of each of the cover. You don't even have to pay them in advance. They'll take it off the sales. So now's the time to be getting these ideas out there. There's markets that exist. So not only Amazon, we have industry-specific catalogs or things like TPT, where you can write a book and put it out there. And as we said, speech pathologists are very forward with their thinking about your book and what needs to change in it or how to incorporate new ideas, which is great. And they will post reviews, and then more people can find your book. Okay. So the question is, what works and what doesn't work? So I'm going to take you through some of our successes and failures, kind of give you the overall idea. Okay.
And we've certainly had plenty of each, haven't we, Scott? Yeah. So hopefully sharing some of our failures at things will help you avoid some of the mistakes that we've made along the way.
So here's a great idea. Are you guys sitting down? Because here's this amazing idea. We thought, we do these things called language samples, and we use narratives and intervention. What if we wrote our own children's book that matched what we do, and then we can just have this and share out the images? So we hired a designer, and we came up with these stories around this frog, Ramon, and basically wrote a series of stories and had them illustrated. Well, It turns out $3,000 later, we hadn't thought about what it would actually cost to then print these beautiful books. So we're left with these handfuls of beautiful images when the truth is people have access to other storybooks just as fast. And this is not a direction that we needed to be moving in. So kind of an expensive lesson. And also read into this an error that we made that we don't make anymore. It's asking speech pathologists first or keeping our ear to the ground about what they need. Okay. Another idea. Here's our second greatest idea. We were working in early childhood a lot. We're in the homes, and we would come back for our meetings each week, and everybody was struggling with the same thing. They're saying, you know what? I went to this family again. I've only got 2 visits a month, 1 visit a month, 1 visit a week, like on the big end. And they're just not doing what I'm sharing. There's no progress. They don't have buy-in. I'm sitting down with this family and they're going off to work or do something else. Like they don't even see themselves as part of the process. We're not making any progress with the little guys. So we started developing materials. We got so happy because we came up with an acronym: sign, model, imitate, label, and expand. And not only that, it worked in Spanish, sonríe. So we had these materials which were cues for parents, and we worked on routines that happened in the home. So it was important to them, and we focused on what the family was struggling with most. And we wrote this book, and it was called Smile. Sounds good, right? There's only one problem. If you are Googling or looking up Smile early development, what are you going to find? Nothing. Like pictures of babies. So nice, cute pictures, but not our book. That's for darn sure. So, being the incredibly intelligent people we are, we changed the title. And we made the title the thing people were looking for: Early Intervention Guidebook. It's like brain science here, right? But now if you Google Early Intervention Guidebook, guess what you find? Our book and the routines that we use in the home that worked for us. Again, this thread we're laying down here, notice that the ideas that worked were things that we needed and that we needed on our caseload at the time. You may not have control of your schedule, but whatever you're thinking about building should be with who's ever in front of you to field test it and lend to your colleagues. Okay, so eventually the routine-based early intervention guidebook came to fruition. Same thing. Most people know us through our work with difference or disorder, difference versus disorder. When that book first came out, it was difference versus disorder because that's what like speech pathologists and researchers refer to it, but it's not exactly what people were looking for, and just like grammatically wasn't as correct. We changed the title of difference or disorder as well as our other materials, and guess what? That book has gotten into the hands of many, many more people.
And I'll jump in here, Scott, to share that the other thing I'll say about publishing books is you need editors, and you need to have lots of eyes on your products before they go out. We edited one of our books. It was actually the difference or disorder book early on, and we had a zillion copies of it printed, and we realized, oh my God, we didn't have the cover edited, and we had this just awful error on there, and we had just spent tons of money printing all of these books, and we had an error on the cover. So we had to put all those in the recycling bin and start anew. So that's painful. Pay for good editors. It's worth every penny of it.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about giving your stuff away for free. Speech pathologists, by and large, are grammar nerds, and they will be the first one to tell you when there's a spelling error or something that's wrong or forgotten, probably because the eyes we put on our evaluations with such exactness, but definitely good ways to get that across. Presentations. Here's one of the biggest takeaways that we want to leave you with, is that presentations are the best ways to get ideas out there for free, to stand in front of people and get feedback, to see head nods or people sleeping, to see like how interested they are and what their questions are around the topics. We've got a whole section dedicated to that. But first, if you guys don't have your idea, we want to leave you with 4 ideas that are highly, highly needed right now in the field. Okay, let's start with this. I want all of you to think about all of your students or your clients that are unintelligible, that are battling with their ability to be understood. Okay, the speech kids. Now, in your brain, I want you to come up with a number. How many of them are articulation related goals, and how many are phonology, these kids? And I know some of them are both, but just ballpark it for me. When I thought about this initially, I was like, kind of 60-40, but I always thought, because I work with Spanish speaking kids, that the Latin languages leaned more into phonology, but I was kind of like maybe 60 or 40. The truth, through research of kids who have intelligibility related goals, the break is 87-13, 87%. So basically 9 out of 10 of your kids should have or need phonology goals. Okay? Here's the problem. I want you to step out of your caseload, and I want you to walk through that booth floor at ASHA or your state convention and walk around and look on top of the tables. What is on those tables? All these beautiful decks of our tick cards and stuff like that, right? Like, where are our phonology materials? Where are the materials we need to serve the 90% of the kids who we can't understand? The truth is that, yes, we need some articulation materials, but the field is not providing us with the resources for what they say are the disorders of the kids that we should be seeing. Okay, so there's idea one. Two, when have any of you ever only tested language? I know it happens, right? But for the most part, we test expressive and receptive language, right? Or we test language and articulation. But when have you only ever tested the expressive portion of it? I would say majority of the time it's 50-50. We do expressive and receptive. That being true, walk back through that booth floor of the convention center. What materials are you seeing on the tabletops? So we're saying receptive language is important enough to test half the time, but where are our receptive language therapy materials? Where are our things about barrier activities and about silent therapy? And I think we've done pretty well with some of the WH question answering stuff, but our receptive language area is a real area of need. I would love to see a book that's 100% dedicated to receptive language. And you know who else would love this one? Anyone who works with ADHD or attention these days, which is hugely needed. This book doesn't exist, but if I created this book and named it, better than we named the Smile book, right? Like, the name of this should be people looking for ADHD support materials and receptive language materials. And then you've not just opened yourself up to 180,000 speech pathologists, you've opened yourself up to all the teachers and the parents working with these kids. Right? Number 3, the research is absolutely extremely clear. There are direct ties between literacy and what we do. Not only that, it is the biggest focus of education, general education, and it's one of the greatest concerns of the teachers, their reading numbers. We know that reading relates and correlates to expanded syntax. We know that there's links between phonology and phonics, that literacy is basically, it influences all of learning. And for those of you that work in the clinic, you know you've gotten these questions. The parents come in, they're doing their after school visits, and they're like, look, his teacher said his reading level is just in the tank. Like, how can we do this? So can we get better alignment between what we do on the language side and what the literacy folks are doing? We just had our last conference was just for SLP Impact. It was all focused on literacy and reading and ways in which we can incorporate the two, both in terms of vocabulary, even if there's bilingualism in place. So a great service we would do to anyone would be to provide more literacy language overlap. We're doing okay here. I'm the author of Literacy-Based Intervention, and there are materials out there, and there are people focusing on this, but there's just oodles and oodles of work that we can do in this direction. And then lastly, We have large caseloads. We have an overabundance of work. We have difficulty both identifying children who come from diverse backgrounds correctly, and with large caseloads, we have difficulty dismissing students. So anything that you do that would help people better identify children or better provide services to children so they can be dismissed is a good idea. Here's the last question for you in this section. So how many of you have actually attended a conference or a workshop on dismissing kids? This. They're telling us there's too many on our caseload. There's too many of the wrong kind on our caseload. We have to correctly identify, and everything's too big. But are we given the resources and the presentations and the materials to actually better dismiss? Here's another question, which hopefully this sounds goofy at this point. How many of you guys have attended a presentation about how to get kids on a caseload? Namely, these are called the referral process, RTI. So we're saying simultaneously, we're over-identifying, misappropriately identifying, there's too many, but here's another presentation on how to get more on. Like, does that make sense? It doesn't to me, but if you have skill set at dismissing kids, moving them off your caseload, we need to hear about it. Okay. So here are 3 rules to develop a great product idea. Number 1 is what you need, chances are someone else needs it. Create your stuff and field test it. Our curriculum-based speech therapy activities books, we had 3 years of lots of caseloads between our staff members with the young guys, the pre-K, the K, what was called PPCD, Preschool Program for Children with Disabilities, ECSC, the young guys, right, to develop those books. We were in life skills classrooms at the elementary, middle school, and high school level for 2 years, going in and trying out therapy materials, coming back to our meeting, trading the materials with other staff members, them trying them out, and they resulted in therapy plans for life skills. So because we needed it, other people did.
Yeah, and I will say that all of these projects came out of what we were doing in the field and also started as really messy binders. I know you all have those, all your materials that you've collected over time. And what we did was we took those, we honed them, we had people use them, and then we turned them into a book. So we didn't necessarily even sit down to say, hey, let's create a book on PPCD, on working with children in the preschool program. Instead, we were creating materials that we used in our work and then thought, hey, this is stuff people need. And so I think that's probably something that I imagine a lot of you on this call are saying, hey, I've got such and such that I share with my team all the time. Those are your products, right? You've probably already done a ton of the work that needs to be done towards creating what needs to be created out there.
Yeah, and in the next couple sections, we're going to be talking a lot about evaluations. And if you want to work in the direction of evaluations, work on your evaluations, make them faster, make them more solid, make them processes that you can get through and organize those complete so that you can market those skills. Second idea, give your ideas away for free. Get them out in front of other people to field test and give you feedback. On bilinguistics.com, we have 2 pages, one for speech therapy materials, one for evaluation resources that get thousands of page views every month. And these are things where you can look at something that we use in our schools, download it, and use it for free. By you using these materials, we basically know that they're important, and we get feedback from people saying, oh, I love this. I don't understand this. I would never use this, but I would do it this way. It's engendered all these really, really great conversations, which eventually boil down into the things that we create and the presentations that we give. For those of you that are interested in this, I know that this is theoretically against a lot of other people's ideas, that you would actually give your stuff away for free to make it better. There's this book, I think it's from 2013. It's called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And it's from Gary Vaynerchuk. And it defends this idea like ad nauseum. Basically, if you give stuff away for free, not only are you simultaneously creating your own expertise, you're creating your own following. You're getting your name out there. You're having all of your stuff vetted to improve it so that there's not errors in it and it exactly meets the audience, both in its title and its content. So we are a huge fan of this. And if you've been to our website, you know that 80% of the stuff on there, 90% of the stuff, you can just download it.
All right. If you are an expert in a particular area, share that expertise, and you can do that in so many different ways, right? So it can be creating that product that you have all the materials in your special binder for. And it can also be going out and giving presentations on that. That could be for your school, for the teachers at your school. It could be for people in your city. You know, we have here the Austin Area Association of Speech Language Pathologists. We used to go present at that group, or early on, and the Texas Speech and Language Hearing Association, and then there's ASHA, and you could just keep going. So definitely, like, find your area of expertise. That area that you love is an area that somebody else needs information on. This field that we're in is so vast. We have so many different aspects of it that we can't all be experts at every single aspect of it. Pediatric feeding, apraxia of speech, stuttering. I mean, we have a big, and that's just, a few parts of our field. So our field is huge. Hone in on your area of expertise and make that the thing that you create products for and do presentations on. And that's one way that you can get out there, do what you love, make some extra money, and share your expertise with others in the field.
Absolutely. So the last point in this section is what Ellen just shared, like, get in front of other people. Getting accepted to a state conference, national conference, even if you don't attend, that's a point to you. Like, this is important. Getting a prime speaking spot during the day or in a big room in the conference center, that's important. Attracting a large crowd. Even getting challenged by the people in the crowd can seem intimidating, but in essence, what they're saying when they challenge you is they're saying, I like what you're saying, and I really want this to work, but here's a concern I have. And then those people that are in that room ultimately they can be the people that are field testing your idea. So we're going to make a pitch to you that presentations are very important, because this is idea number 2, and this is the one that kind of oozes out into all the other ideas that we have today, because there are advantages to presenting. You can connect with others who understand you and to understand what they truly need. If they walk into your room or into your presentation, they're saying it's important and they want to have a conversation about it. For those of you that want to do evaluations in your time with other school districts or with other clinics, we use presentations kind of as a business card, where it's very difficult to figure out what needs a school district wants, but we can offer a free presentation to them to say, hey, I'll come into your speech meeting. You guys have it once a month. I got this 15, 20, 30-minute presentation on this topic. I'd love to talk with them. Then you get to know the speech lead and you get to know the other SLPs and find out what their needs are. This is a free download that we have. For those of you that have the ability to work with children who are diverse, every district and clinic near you needs this information. And you can take this deck that we developed and put it out to people so that they can, you can present to them and share this information.
And this one is designed for you to share with teachers in particular to reduce the number of referrals, right? So part of this is, I saw in the chat box that lots of people on this call are, don't speak another language but work with it, and are evaluating children from other language backgrounds, which we all have to do. But one of the things that we see in our field is that this massive over referral, and this happens, the research shows us that this happens when there's a mismatch between teachers and the children they serve. And when they see that child not, progressing at the exact level of the other kids, what they do is they refer for an evaluation in special education. Often speech is the first place that they start. And so we get a lot of referrals like this of kids from diverse backgrounds who really shouldn't be there. So this is a 21 slide deck that you can just download and fire up in your teacher meeting to say, to walk through the process of helping teachers identify which kids should be referred and which ones shouldn't be referred. It's about a 20-minute presentation. So one, it gives you some exposure presenting if that's something you haven't done a lot of. But two, it also hopefully has the impact of reducing the unnecessary referrals.
Absolutely. You can put a product that you have in front of other SLPs to get their feedback just by asking them at the end of the presentation saying, hey, I've got these materials. If you guys want them, let me know. I'll send them to you for free. You can start to build the following of people who are doing the same thing in your field or something different. So present for free, present often. These are some tips that I want to share with how to get yourself up and running. This is not easy for any of us, even though we speak so much in our job. Practice the same materials in the same presentation more than once. If you don't have opportunities to present or that's too big, there's also YouTube, and you can do a small presentation as a video. And this last one is painful, but record yourself. So we have 100 online courses. I have the pleasure of going through and editing this and listening to myself and Ellen over and over and over. And it's so painful, but honestly, counting the ums and the ohs and where you're off track, and rumor has it that I have the ability to just rabbit hole on something I shouldn't be talking about, and I get clear vision of that. Also, you get to unfortunately see yourself, and we're here to tell you that like this stuff it's always ongoing, right? Where you have to look at yourself and figure out when there's crooked art and bad lighting and wrinkled clothes. And you guys, this honestly is from real recent.
Yes, and Scott does this really mean thing where he takes these snippets of me saying stupid things on video and then sends them to me. It's terrible.
We look forward to seeing you down there and meeting you in person in Belize.
See you there.
That was dorky.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing.
See you there.
Oh boy, that's painful.
How do you make great slides and beautiful slides? We want to end this section with a few resources. There's a speaker, Nancy Duarte. She has this book called Slideology. So if you're not gifted at making good slides, there's Canva, and then there's this book, which is incredible. And these are all in the handouts. Secondly, and more importantly, she has a book called Resonate. And in this book, she takes Stephen Jobs' speech when he launches the iPod. She takes Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and she walks you through the time segments and what they're doing in these presentations to show you the brilliance of them. So I've got a piece from her. She also has a TED Talk, which I encourage you to watch the full 14 minutes because she's amazing.
You have the power to change the world. I'm not saying that to be cliche. You really have the power to change the world. Deep inside of you, every single one of you has the most powerful device known to man, and that's an idea. So a single idea from the human mind, it can start a groundswell, it could be a flashpoint for a movement, and it can actually rewrite our future. But an idea is powerless if it stays inside of you. If you never pull that idea out for others to contend with, it will die with you. Now, maybe some of you guys have tried to convey your idea, and it wasn't adopted, it was rejected, and some other mediocre or average idea was adopted. And the only difference between those two is in the way it was communicated. Because if you communicate an idea in a way that resonates, change will happen, and you can change the world.
Yes. So use presentations and get your ideas out there. And Nancy Duarte is the one to go to. Some people say, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk who said this, that it takes 32 live presentations to get to a point where you're comfortable. So be patient, have fun, just do as much as you can. And we have to say that if you attend a state conference and if you attend the national conference, it costs money. You got to drive there, you got to pay to get in. So if you are at that level, make sure it's better if you have a more solid idea together so that you can get use that opportunity to be in front of all those speech pathologists and get some real feedback at that level.
All right, let's talk about evaluations for schools. My favorite. I love my school evaluations. One of the things that we can do as just an extra, right, is for those of you who are working in clinics or elsewhere, picking up a school evaluation here and there. There's high need. I will say that there's a huge need. So the pandemic left us in a situation where we had evaluations piling up, and I know that there are still school districts that are trying to recover from those. In our area, especially, there have been a couple who have just been inundated with evaluations and haven't been able to, dig themselves out of the hole. So if evaluations are something that you love to do, by all means, check in with the school districts in your area to see if they have that as a possibility for an extra thing. Setting up a contract to pick up an evaluation here and there. One of the nice things about evaluations is that it's you do it and it's done. It's not this ongoing thing like intervention is. So if you have time during spring break and there's a school district that's operating during that time, jump in and see if you can do that. Or summertime is another thing. Many school districts are conducting testing during the summers, and that could be a way to pick up some extra things. Sometimes it's nice when you're not necessarily employed by the group and you come in as the contractor to do those, because you don't have to do bus duty and all those other things. You can go in, do the piece that you love, and support the school district that way. So that's one way we can do that. Independent evaluation. So that is another area. That's something that I do fairly often, is independent educational evaluation. So when there is a disagreement between a school and a family, the family can request an independent evaluation that the school provides for them, but it needs to be someone outside of the school. So getting on lists for school districts in your area to say, hey, I'm interested in doing independent evaluations. One thing I will say about these evaluations is that they do take more time than your typical evaluation. And that is because there has been conflict. There's generally a lot that you have to go through in terms of reviewing previous records and really understanding the crux of the issue, so that you know how to proceed. So when you set your contract for an independent evaluation, do so knowing that those do take longer than your typical evaluation usually. So we talked a little bit about summer ones, also play-based evaluation. So I have also, over the course of my career, served on play-based evaluation teams in school districts where I go in, I participate on a collaborative team with maybe with an OT, with a school psychologist, other professionals, depending on the needs of the student. They're fun to do. One of my favorite things about doing these evaluations that I did in one nearby district is that I just wrote up the speech portion only, and then I would just send that, and somebody else would incorporate that into the report. So for me, that was awesome because I didn't have to go through and do all that background stuff and all that. So that's another idea for checking in to see if you can be a part of that school-based team. My area, I speak 2 languages. I speak English and Spanish. I evaluate students in many, many, many different languages. So that is an area of expertise that I have built up over my 3 decades in this field, is conducting evaluations in languages other than just English. In doing this, I have found that one of the things I see quite often, too often, is that I'll go in to do an evaluation, and I've had, a teacher has referred the student for the evaluation. And then when you get the parent information, you realize the parents aren't concerned about this child, but the teacher is. And so we see this a lot where there's this cultural mismatch. The kid gets referred, the parents aren't concerned, and guess what? The child doesn't have a disorder. So getting that parent information is really, really important. And so this drove one of our projects, which was one, let's first of all get a great parent questionnaire together with the right questions on it. We've been through, we work with many school districts. We've seen lots of parent questionnaires, and some of them are like, why are we asking this question? My favorite one is, how old were you when you gave birth to your child? I'm like, that's nobody's business but mine. It's not relevant for our speech and language evaluation, right? But so we created these, we collaborated with speech language pathologists all over the country, many in the LA Unified School District, to create parent questionnaires in 16 different languages. And those are a resource on our website. You can always go to the website and locate those in our free resources. This is really cool, and it really helps us to get the information that we need to effectively do these evaluations. They are done bilingually, so you can tell what is said in there. You see in the tiny font, how old was your child when they arrived in the United States? So we can see what's going on. So this just kind of facilitates our work with our interpreters so that I know what's coming. I'm not asking the interpreter to read the item to me. I want to talk about the family's responses. All right. And in a minute, we'll share, I'm going to share kind of how we've incorporated that into the Evalubox thing as well. Okay, contracts for clinics. We also run a clinic at Bilinguistics. And one of the things that we know about clinics is the afternoons are the busiest. For those of you who work in clinics, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The afternoon clinics, I mean, especially a pediatric clinic, when we are seeing kids after school, those are the coveted appointment slots. And it also makes for a really lopsided work day for the people who work in the clinics. We often have far more demand for those afternoon appointments than we do speech language pathologists to serve those. So check in, if this is something that you are interested in doing, some more therapy, some one-on-one therapy. If you work in the schools and you're, accustomed to groups, but you want to have a few clients who you can work with one-on-one, check in with the clinics in your area and see if you can pick up a few clients after school. Maybe even avoid sitting in traffic, like find one really close to your workplace, stop in there, do a few sessions, and then make your way home once the traffic has died down. Evaluations for clinics, that's another area. These are bottlenecks for clinics to get kids into the system. We are always looking for people to help, support the evaluations in our clinics so that we can get kids on the list for services. And it's always a balancing act. Every clinic in town is doing the balancing act of getting the evaluations done, having enough kids in the queue for services so that, people can keep their caseloads full. That's important too. And getting those evaluations done. One thing I'll say about the evaluations in the clinic is that insurance companies pay really low rates for these evaluations. In our clinic, we take a loss on those evaluations, but they're necessary to get done so that we can provide services for kids. So you can certainly go in and negotiate what you need to negotiate, knowing that, the evaluations have to get done for therapy to happen.
Yeah. Let me jump in here with a question. How do you determine how much to charge for an evaluation when it can take multiple visits or hours to write up? That's a great question.
Yes, that is a great question. And I'm going to say that I think it varies across the country what people pay. It depends on whether you're in a union state or not. But I think that you need to think about for yourself, what do you want to make on an hourly basis? And how long does it take you to do those? And then there's, how can I do those faster? I mean, that's been something, I will say that has been what has driven a lot of the products that we have created over time, is saying, how can we do this faster? This should not take this long. we've had situations where, school evaluations could take like 8, 10, 12 hours. And then we have to look at what's taking so long. Why is that taking so long? And cut a lot of that. And I will share a few more of the ideas that we've done surrounding that as well.
Quick way to get to the answer to that, guaranteed you have some partially retired or retired speech pathologist in your neighborhood who's doing this. And find out who's doing evals in your neighborhood or a neighboring district if it feels competitive, and see what they're charging. And that'll give you the baseline. Past that, as Ellen said, it's just dollars for hours, right? If there's an average amount of money that they're paying for an evaluation, and we feel this is one of the quickest ways to increase the speech pathologist's income, because for a single event, you can be making between $200 and $600, $700 we've heard, for regular evaluations, depending on where you are in the country. And you just have to divide that money into the number of hours you can take and do it. And if you can reduce those, that's when it gets fun and interesting.
Right. So this product, Evalubox, is one that has fully emerged out of our need to, one, keep up with all the evaluations that we're doing, and two, speed up the process. So this is a dashboard from Evalubox that is where I can see, here are all the kids who I'm serving. This is my fake Evalubox account, so these aren't real kids. Like Pebbles Flintstone, but I can see what kind of evaluation, when it's due, what the school is. And then when I click on the child's file, I can see every component that's needed and whether it's checked off or not. So this just helps me to manage all of the evaluations on my plate. Also within it, so this is another thing where I was like, okay, we work across a lot of districts. We have clinic eval, and every template is different. So we have one school evaluation template that we use for most of our districts, but then we have one district where they want theirs used. And so we can put those templates inside of here, inside of the system, and code them so that we're not having to go in and do find and replace and all that stuff. I just have the template I need, I click on it, and then all the information kind of goes in there. So managing your templates, and then having that information go in. This is something where I felt like I'm just how many times have I gone in and done a find and replace on kids' names and on pronouns and all that stuff, all that kind of time that I'm spending. And so this piece, we click a button in Evalubox. I pick my template, I click a button, and all the kids' information goes into their report. So this is kind of one of the things that we have been spending a lot of time on, is trying to speed up this process.
This is something we developed in our office. We have a clinic. We're in the homes. We're in the schools. And it's something we developed to see hundreds and test hundreds of kids in a school year. And yes, we have now made this available to other speech pathologists, and we'll show you the link at the end. Both the individuals, because we know that some people want to do their own individual thing, but also school districts and other groups.
All right. Some people may be interested in building their own practice, and I strongly encourage you to go and get experience in different clinics and see what works and what doesn't work. See what aspects of the field you want to focus on. One of in fact, our very first employee at Bilinguistics has started a clinic of her own, and she decided, she was in our clinic for a long time and then took off to have kids and wanted to do her own thing. But she was like, I don't want to deal with insurance at all. So she focuses on a population that can pay cash. And that's been her little niche in the world. But go in and get experience to find out how things are done. Ask questions. If building your own practice is something you want to do, there are many, many details. There are many software programs that help you run things. But go in and learn those in other places to really get a sense of those as you're, diving in to build your own clientele and build your own practice. All right, these are a few of the resources that we have available to those of you who are interested in this aspect of it. But we have referral forms, intake forms in English and in Spanish. Another thing that we put together is a very basic level book on communication disorders for families. So this is something where we can easily share information with our families on their child's communication disorders, that provides just the basics of information for them about what they need to, or what they're diving into. So that's been something else that we've found is really important, is getting resources to be easily accessed. And there's the birth of our resource page on our website as well. Teletherapy.
Lastly, idea number 5 is teletherapy. Few quick slides here because it's pretty straightforward. One blessing coming out of the pandemic is that teletherapy has been accepted. Before this, for those of you that are new to the field, maybe you do teletherapy if you were considered a remote population, like in some of the pueblos of New Mexico. We did a series of presentations to the school districts in Alaska, and then teletherapy was accepted. Nowadays, these obstacles that we deal with come with new solutions. We talk about commutes and using your commute time. How about no commute? We know people who are doing teletherapy after school and after clinic during the heavy drive times. There's doing some sessions that can work with people anywhere within the United States as long as they're licensed. So it's pretty straightforward in that you would pick a teletherapy company or research them. And if you get online and talk to speech pathologist groups, they'll tell you the pluses and minuses of those. You need to be licensed in the state. And if they have the work that matches your skill set and the schedule works out, you can get some times and hours to work with them. But in terms of getting money quickly to maybe fund one of your greatest ideas or increase your income, teletherapy is a great idea because it's limited to your computer or your phone. Most of the companies have their own platform with therapy materials inside and evaluation tools inside. Okay. All right. So to conclude, we have to talk about one last elephant in the room, and then we want to show you how even after 20 years, everything we shared still makes its way into our discussions about what we need to focus on for the field. So where do we find the time and how do we fund these ideas? Timing is super important because if you jump into this and start waking up early or staying later, it's very hard to keep your idea and carry it through to the end because of burnout. It ensures that our ideas continue to develop. And we're not talking about double dipping here, like doing something on the job that you shouldn't be. Quite the opposite. We're talking about doing something on the job that you should be and honing those ideas, but just getting it out to more people. Okay. And funding, as far as that goes, if we're trying to make more money, we don't necessarily want to be spending money. Some things take investment on the front end, but hopefully throughout this presentation, you've seen that we can make an enormous distance before we actually even spend a dime. And most ideas, the best ideas, don't cost anything because you're already using them. So you've vetted them on your students and then your colleagues. So work on things you've already been working on. And think about the time that you already have based on the job that you've accepted and the job that you're doing. Is your summer more lean? Do you have commute time? Is there time after the schedule? Are you a clinic person who can rearrange your therapy blocks? Funding, before spending money on the thing that you're creating, vet them in front of your staff members, your other SLPs, online communities, regional, state, national events like presentations. Use the free programs and the marketing platforms that exist to get feedback. And above all, the most and easiest way to get money through the schools, clinics, or teletherapy is through evaluations. These are the highest paying on average, and it depends on your state, depends on what level you're at, somewhere between $200, $600. The IIEs, after you've been an evaluator, those can be paid a lot more. It's a single event. They're highly needed and they're the easiest to schedule. So what is our next big idea taking all this together? Here's what we're hearing from SLPs currently. We don't have any time and we have enormous caseloads and we're drowning and we're dealing with overwhelm. Speech leads, we're short on staff and we need a way to reduce the burden of our SLPs. Clinical directors, I need evaluations completed because I need to maintain full caseloads for all the staff I have working for me. So we're thinking if we can help SLPs quickly gather information and write fast, accurate reports, we can address a lot of these issues. We can give them time back. You people know there's so many things we can't control, right? Maybe not who we work with, not our caseload size. I don't know how many of you can control the room you're working in, like broom closet, janitor closet, anybody? There's so many things we can't control. Something we can control is the amount of time we spend doing the evaluation. This will help people dismiss students. It's an opportunity. Getting better at this means that you can make more money off of evaluations because they're taking you less time. You can reduce those burdens that the speech leads are fearful of, so they'll be interested in what you say. And clinical directors would love to have extra evaluations done. It's important to biolinguistics too, because if we can evaluate faster and more accurately, we can accept more evaluations. At this point, we're working in 53 neighboring districts, right? And then this also gives us time to do presentations like this and focus on other products. So this is what we've been focusing on, and we finally launched. It's Evalubox, and it's a way for speech pathologists to write reports faster. And we've built this in our office, like everything else we've done, and now we're making it available to other SLPs who want their time back or want to do something lucrative with evaluations or just evaluate better. I've got a quick video here to show you guys about it.
Evalubox is a program that helps speech-language pathologists write their evaluation reports faster. Here's how. Simply send parents and teachers links to electronic forms, and their responses go directly into your report. Enter standardized scores into pre-designed tables along with your diagnostic impressions. Generate SMART goals and recommendations with the click of a button. And watch it all populate into a pre-designed template or one of your own. Edit your final draft and hit print. It's that easy. Not only that, all of your reports are organized into a dashboard that shows you exactly what still needs to be done and what has already been completed. The future of report writing is here. Gone are the days of cutting and pasting, updating numerous templates to avoid errors, and chasing down questionnaires to complete your report.
You know, when we started talking about this, it was silly. Like, I went to a dentist appointment, right? And I think I weirded out the dentist because they're doing their stuff, got dental cleaning, he pulls this monitor in front of me. And in minutes, he had cleaned my teeth and he had exact measurements on all my teeth and knew exactly where I was. And that's it. Do you think he's going home to watch reruns of Friends and writing a report for 8 hours about my teeth? Like, no other medical people do this. And here we are working with these dinosaurs of templates and confusing templates and getting pronoun errors in a report. So, like, we need to do this, right? We need to fix this for speech pathologists. And what Ellen had said before, do you remember those beautiful forms that were translated into all those languages? Watch this.
Gone are the days of tracking down parent and teacher questionnaires to be able to begin writing your report. Evalubox has automated the entire process. Here's how it works. Each child has a unique parent, teacher, and nurse link. Simply copy it and send it by email or text. They click on it, answer the questions, and submit their responses in an encrypted format. Then you can view and edit the questionnaire right inside of the system. And it gets even better. Their responses go directly into the report. And Evalubox is flexible too. If you need a paper copy, Evalubox has a library of culturally sensitive referral documents, and the parent questionnaire has been translated into numerous languages. There we go.
At evalubox.com, you can see the rest of the process. There's a tab there about pricing. The intake forms are standardized. We went through those with many of the districts that we have, but the responses that land in your report, you can edit them there.
Other questions, you can put your own logo inside of Evalubox, so it looks like your template. It is your template. You can create your own, or you can modify ones that are in there. And then other questions about the multilingual piece. So the parent questionnaires are multilingual, and those can be sent to families in their language. The family can also select a language to use to put their information in, and then that comes back into the overall report is written in English. It is designed in that way. When you finish a report in there, you just PDF it and then upload it into whatever system you're using for your EMR or your school district system. So that's kind of how that process works. But you know, our overall goal with this, again, was just like shortening the amount of time that we spend doing just like tasks that aren't what we got into the field to do, right? Tracking down parents and then taking their handwritten thing and putting it into your report. You know, it's like, I just so many times sat at my desk with a pile of papers around me, trying to dig for these little pieces of information. And I was like, God, there's got to be a better way. So this is the result of that is, you know, trying to find ways that we are able to spend our time diagnosing kids as opposed to, you know, digging through piles of paperwork. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone.